on the bar. But before Kevin presses this, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the shoulder blade position that I've been discussing, which is retraction and depression of the scapula, which is the position that I want you to be in from start to finish. A lot of people look at this position and think, that's not how the body's designed to move. And it's not. With correct human movement, we think of a push pattern in things like a punch, throwing a ball, or a general push pattern. Now, with this movement of the arm, that corresponds with a scapular position where at this fully extended position of the arm, we are protracting and elevating our scapula. And I've asked Kevin to retract and depress through the entire movement. And I'm going to tell you the difference between a bench press and throwing a punch or throwing a ball or pushing. In these movements, I don't have a board jamming my scapula out of position. If Kevin tries to do the functional thing with the bench press, put your arms out in front of you, okay? It's a big error that I see a lot of people make, and it can lead to injury because human movement doesn't involve having a board jamming your scapula out of position. This is not human movement. This is pushing a heavy object off your chest, laying in a supine position or laying on your back with a board jamming your scapula out of position. And the fact is, when Kevin tries to lower the bar down to his chest, if he starts in the protracted position, this board is going to restrict his shoulder blades from going where they want to go. And when Kevin lowers the bar to his chest, what he wants, think of a rowing pattern. So this is the push or the throwing pattern where the scapula wants to protract and elevate. And then the opposing movement is a rowing or a pulling action where we want to finish that movement where the scapula is retracted and depressed. So when the arm's back here, we want the scapula to be backing down towards the back pocket. And that's the cue that I'm telling Kevin to be in from start to finish. So protract, arms out in front. That's the end of a push pattern when we're thinking functional movement patterns. Bring the bar down to your chest. Now, as he brings it down to his chest, we want to retract and depress. There's no board jamming his scapula out of position, and he's able to have that free range of motion. But if he unracks with his scapula protracted, he's got a board jamming his scapula out of position. With 240 kilograms in his hands, he's not able to, his scapula is going to be jammed out of position from this board, and it's going to lead definitely to shoulder injury if it's at his maximum weight. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a demonstration just with 80 kilograms, because as we know, this is quite light for Kevin. So let's check it out. Now we're going to show you what not to do. One of the most common errors that I see when people are setting up in this bench press, when he unracks the weight, don't unrack it yet. Remember, when we throw a punch or a push with human movement, that corresponding movement of the scapula is protraction elevation. And this is what a lot of people associate with the push pattern, especially when they unrack that weight. So this is what I don't want you to do. Kevin protracts and elevates his scapula, so he's completely out of position. His chest is caved in. Lowering the weight to his chest with a heavy weight in this position is actually quite unsafe. This is where you see pec tears and shoulder injuries. I don't actually like the look of that. As you can see, Kevin was very apprehensive when he brought the bar down to his chest. He didn't want to touch the chest with his bar because his scapula is not in the correct position. When that bar is on his chest, he wants his scapula to be retracted and depressed, which is getting blocked right now because he's laying down on a board, laying down on the bench, which is restricting his natural scapular movement. Now we've established that the bench press isn't human movement. It's an excellent tool that we use to develop our pushing strength. And it is a great tool to be able to do that. And it is also part of a sport of powerlifting. You don't have to be a powerlifter to benefit from the bench press. So now we're going to go back to the correct way in exactly how you should be bench pressing. So starting with this weight, doing it the proper way. Sliding back so his head is off the bench. Bringing his feet back so that he can get in the correct position. Getting up onto the balls of his feet. Pushing his heels down, which is hip joint extension. Remember, anterior rotation of the pelvis is paired with extension of the spine, which is that arch that you're seeing. So pushing his heels down allows us to arch his back. Now remember, it's not just the lower back that we want to arch. The upper back, it's the thoracic spine. And the reason we want thoracic extension, I know that you at home are going to be looking at the camera and thinking about this movement. I want you to do that. Arch your back and watch what happens. The question that I ask now is, where did your shoulder blades go? They go back and down towards your back pockets, even though I didn't ask you to do that. It's just where they want to sit when you are extending your thoracic spine. Let's do it. Heels down, slide into position, eyes behind the bar. Retract and depress the scapula, taking a big breath. 4 reps. Lowers the weight down to his chest under control by pulling the bar apart and powers that weight back up with intent. Look at the bar path. It's relatively straight, but not perfectly straight. A common question that I hear a lot of is, what's the correct bar path for a bench press? And a lot of people teach there should be a diagonal pattern with this bar path. And in my experience, when I see people trying to attempt a diagonal bar path, they exaggerate that movement far too much. So the way that I teach it is to think about a straight bar path. That's the most efficient way to get from point A to point B in the shortest line possible. There will naturally be a diagonal movement, but let's not think about that. Think of moving it as straight as possible. That's going to be your safest bet to move the heaviest weight possible as safely as possible. Now, he's finished 80 kilograms. We'll go to the next increment, which is going to be 100 kilograms.